In Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 258, Sukuna regains his domain expansion, Yuji trades his soul, and Sukuna's flames finally return. After achieving 2 black flashes, Gojo was able to set up a reverse curse technique relay thanks to his awakened state. This was special because the execution and cost of the technique were being dispersed throughout different parts of his brain. And this is the 7th chapter in a row that Gojo has either been mentioned or appeared in. Similarly, Sukuna should have been able to use reverse curse technique again thanks to his black flashes, therefore allowing him to regrow his severed hands and definitively win. However, Yuji managed to land 7 consecutive black flashes directly to the boundary between Sukuna and Megami's souls. This removed the possibility of Sukuna regaining his reverse curse technique. Elsewhere, Miguel commended his friend Laru. He claimed that the man was a master of his craft. Laru, meanwhile, could only feel the encroachment of death and the opening of heaven's gates. But just then, Miguel felt something terrible. With sweat running down his face, he cried out in dismay. Domain expansion! Malevolent shrine! This abominable power has returned to its master, thanks to his many black flashes. Several blocks of buildings began to topple from the outspread of power. By changing the hand signs and using a part of his brain that isn't impeded by infinite void, Sukuna has been able to use his curse technique and barrier technique. Despite the many binding vows and general uncertainties, the many black flash attacks have brought about the return of Malevolent Shrine with no loss to its output or range. That is bad news. Meimei's Black Crows began to be torn apart as they fled the scene. In the past, Hikari told the others that anyone who wanted to fight would either need access to reverse curse technique or anti-domain capabilities. Hearing that, Maki made it clear that she'd need to sit things out, something that was obvious enough to Hikari without the clarification. Joso believed that he and Yuji would be able to survive thanks to reverse curse technique, a belief that seemed to catch Yuji off guard. Joso wanted to know how the others are able to compensate for their blood loss when they regenerate. Hikari wasn't really sure since he's usually on autopilot. Yuta was the instinctual type too. Meanwhile, Shoko explained that she turns curse energy into blood. She added that there are plenty of people who can use reverse curse technique but are unable to heal other people. A possible reason for this is the base difference in use. Another might be that the person's body refuses to be treated. In some cases, the curse energy of the healer rejects the process, while in others, the curse energy of the target doesn't respond to the conversion of curse energy to blood. And that's why the potency of her healing varies on a case-to-case basis. So yeah, plenty of common impediments. Joso presumed as much. His body lets him turn curse energy into blood. By absorbing the other death paintings, Yuji's body should be capable of the same thing, which includes the curse technique. Joko understood that this means it is a lot easier for these two to learn reverse curse technique than it would be for others. Joso also added that their bodies let them make up for the technical aspects of the technique. He's pretty sure that this means the exhaustive expense of curse energy, which is the most limiting factor of reverse curse technique, does not apply to them, which is why he proposed that they initiate switch training with someone who already has access to reverse curse technique. It's not something that Yuji would need to compensate for. But the mention of switch training confused Yuji. Wee explained that his technique allows him to teleport targets. If he's with someone, he can then send them to a person or place that he's marked before. Yuji understood as much. The kid continued to say that the body and soul can be seen as 2 different things. The body is the box, and the soul is what's inside. Yuji was still following. He was told to imagine that a person's body is a birthday gift. You can't just take what's inside of the present for yourself. At this point, Yuji was becoming a bit lost, but Hikari told him to just keep listening. It was then said that with the permission of the owner, the contents of the box can be taken. Thanks to that, Wee can actually swap the souls of 2 willing people that he's marked, which was quite the shocker for Yuji. The boy wasn't too happy about the reaction. Yuji clarified that this ability reminds him of Mahito's ability to alter the body and soul. He feared that the resulting shape of a person's body and soul would be warped if they're swapped, but apparently that's not a concern. Wee can swap the insides of the gifts without opening up the boxes, so there are no negative signs of the soul swap on the body. Kusakabe mentioned the incredible speed of Yuji's growth as a sorcerer. He wanted to know if the young sorcerer knew why this was. Yuji became a bit flustered while he began mentioning his natural talent, but he was cut off by the declaration that is thanks to Sukuna. And I'm sure this will only add to the natural talent versus birthright main character debates. Yuji wasn't really happy about the reality, but with enough repetition, movements become a matter of muscle memory. And Sukuna used his technique in Yuji's body, which is to say that Yuji's body recalls using extreme special grade Jujutsu. So his incredibly speedy growth can be attributed to the King of Curses. They would effectively be doing the same thing with switch training. Kusakabe would be the first person to switch with Yuji. With that, Yuji would learn his incredible curse energy manipulation and a much needed barrier technique, Simple Domain, of which the strongest first grade sorcerer is heralded as a master. Hikari was a bit confused by that. He was pretty sure that a binding vow kept the Simple Domain from being taught to outsiders of the new Shadow School. But Mei was pretty happy to say that she's handled that hurdle herself. Her brother clarified that within the span of a month, the soul swapping limit is 2 times per person, so they would need to be clever about their pairings. What's really cool is that this switch training stuff applies to all of them. It'll be really interesting to see who swapped with who later on. They avoided the redundancy of pairing Yuji with a user of reverse curse technique, so that logic will probably apply to the rest of them as well. Now I can totally see why Yuta said that they cheated. And now in the present, Yuji has access to Simple Domain, allowing him to persist in the midst of Sukuna's domain expansion. The current state of the shrine wasn't the best. Yuji could at least tell that it was still incomplete. He was sure that there must be an exploitable weak point somewhere. For now, he would just need to endure the mayhem. We then see that Sukuna's revised hand sign mirrors that of Gojo's, which is low-key pretty disrespectful. Mimicking Gojo to execute an inferior version of Malevolent Shrine is nasty work, and Yuji was totally right. Sukuna, even at this late stage of the conflict, managed to unleash slashes throughout his barrier on a scale as big as Shibuya. He covered his domain in an outer shell barrier. This caused the escape route binding vow to disappear. This resulted in a narrowed range and a shift in the domain's operation. In the midst of this materialized landscape, the sure hit effect would activate. It makes it impossible to detect Maki since she lacks curse energy. But given the current state of his body, Sukuna wouldn't be able to maintain this high-level domain forever. He has 99 seconds at his disposal. In only 99 seconds, Malevolent Shrine will break down and fall apart. For now, they all just need to withstand the onslaught. Choso cried out for his brother. In the next instant, Yuji was torn into all over his body. One of his legs left him, and he was placed on his back. Yuji didn't take long to get back up and reconnect his missing limb. What I imagine to be a combination of reverse curse technique and blood manipulation, which is a really sick pairing. The slashes actually stopped. With wide eyes, Yuji couldn't believe that they'd actually managed to endure it. But then he heard the words, "Furnace, open." Sukuna's horrifying flames are back. But knowing that Yuji is pretty much the pre-evolved form of Sukuna, maybe he'll have his own version of this ability too. But the last fire user to face Sukuna got clapped, so yeah. The Viz version has Sukuna call this power Divine Flame. It's definitely cooler, but those translations have been pretty rough lately. But given all this stuff about muscle memory and such, if Megumi ever locks in and pulls himself together, he should have access to many of the things we've seen Sukuna do. Which only makes me wonder how that will be implemented in the future and under what context. Maybe after all that he's been through, Megumi's relationship with Yuji could end up being like that of Gojo and Geto. If you have any ideas related to that or anything else in the chapter, go ahead and bring the discussion to the comments. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.